Hello and welcome to a video on USSD programming. In this video, we're going to develop a simple PHP application. I don't want to call it an application because it's just a simple demonstration on how USSD programming works. Let me just show you a simple demonstration of what I mean. I've logged on to AfricasTalking website so that you can see what you're developing. So let me go to Sandbox. So I'm going to launch the simulator, put my number, and then launch. We are going to do USSD, and we are going to get the code from AfricasTalking service codes, and this is one of the codes that I've developed for this particular project. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it inside this sandbox that we have launched, and then call. So we should be able to see the kind of application that you're going to develop. Give it some time. I'm using Heroku for hosting and sometimes it's a bit slow to restart. So if I put number 1, that is I want my account, and send, I'm going to get 1 or 2. If I put 1, I'm going to get account number. Your account number is this. Let's repeat the process. If I put still 1, my account, and click on send, and then put 2, account balance, it's going to show an account balance of 10,000. Let's still do something else. Let's say now I put 2. I'm supposed to get my mobile number. So we are going to develop this very simple application using PHP, host it on Heroku server, which is free. So before we start, you need to go to Heroku, sign up for an account. You download Heroku. You download this Heroku on your desktop. In short, you install Heroku on your computer. Then first of all, you need to install Git, which is the free and open source distributed version control system. So you're going to come here and download Git for Windows if you're using Windows. Then you need to sign up for a Heroku account. Then after that, you're going to download Visual Studio Code, although this is not a must. If you have another code editing software or IDE that you like to use, you can use that. You don't have to download Visual Studio Code, but I will demonstrate this project using Visual Studio Code. So let's start this process. I'm going to demonstrate this using Visual Studio Code as my code editor. So to open Visual Studio Code, you either have an icon on your desktop, or you can go to Start menu and click on Run. And then inside this dialog box, you type code space dot, then you enter. You're going to have the Visual Studio Code IDE open. From here, we are going to open a folder that I've created on the desktop. So let's navigate to it, desktop, and the folder is inside PHP, then USSD. And then we select that folder. We are going to put all the contents for this particular demonstration in that folder. So after this, let's create the index.php page, which is our first page for this application, and then open PHP tags so that we can start now working on the simple demonstration that I'm preparing for you. So first, we need to create the variables that are going to hold our data. The first variable is the session ID, and this takes the form of a string. And this is a unique value that is generated when the session starts, and it's sent every time a mobile subscriber response has been received by the gateway. The other variable is the service code, which we are going to register towards the end of the session. A service code is a unique short number that the user dials on their screen to initiate communication from the mobile phones to the telecom and then finally to our application through the API. The third one is the mobile number of the subscriber who is interacting with the USSD application that we are developing, which is also a string, so we put it inside double quotes. There's also the text, and this shows the user input, and it is an empty string in the first notification of a session. After that, it concatenates all the user input within the session with the star until the session ends. If you are confused on what you are doing, you may need to learn more about PHP variables, although this will get clear when we start using them in the code. But for now, we had to do this as an initial stage in the process that you are going through. After declaring the variables, we need to put some conditions that classify the user input to determine the kind of feedback that you are supposed to send to them, and we are going to use if statements to achieve this. So if text is equals to nothing, this means that this is the first request from the user after dialing the service codes on their phone. It means they have not given any response, so we will take it as the first request because it has nothing in it. And this also means that we have to start our coding with the word con or con, since we are supposed to start a response with con and terminate it with end. Let's create a variable and call it response, and it takes the form of a string. It starts with con to say that this is the first connection, and it is the first option. It is a question to the user asking them, what would you want to check? Then \n says that we break to the next line. We're also going to create an additional response in the same dialog that opens on the user's mobile phone, and in this case we are going to give them the first option, which is my account, then /n to break to the next line where we give the second response, which is 2, and this option is my phone number. So the user is either checking the account details or the phone number. So the first option, if they select one, we know that they're interested in account, and if they select 2, we know that they're interested in phone number. We need an else if statement here, just in case they select a 1. We know that this is the first business logic. Else if and text equals 1, and we are using a string. If you want this to match exactly, for instance, if you want 1 to be an integer, you put triple equals, which means that whatever is in the text and the condition that you have given must be equal. So in this case, 1 must be a string. If it's an integer, it's not correct. Here we do the business logic for the first level response, and in this case the first one is the question and it's the first option. So choose account information you want to view is the question that you're going to ask to the user through a dialog that appears on their screen. When the user gives us a feedback on whether they want to access their account or phone number, the gateway will either receive a 1 or 2, and this 1 or 2 is sent back to the application. Then application will evaluate and see this time round the text has something, and this something is a number 1. So it's going to come to the first if statement and find out the text is not empty, which means it needs to go to the next condition, else if text. Then it will find that the text has 1. It's going to return this menu to the user to select on whether they want the account number or the account balance. So this menu will be made of 3 lines, and these lines are the lines that are holding the response variable. The first line will have the question or the option that describes on what the user should do. Then there will be option 1 and option 2. Option 1 will be the account number, while option 2 will be the account balance. So the user will need to enter either 1 or 2. Assuming that instead of 1 the user had entered 2, our application would resolve to else if, where text equals 2, and look for the business logic that is involved in this process. This is a request that is not going to continue. So the text will start with end, which shows that this will end the process, and then it's going to give the feedback of your phone number is, then the phone number from the business logic, and that will be the end of this statement. Now, assuming the user selected option 1, where they were looking for their account, they also selected option 1, which was account number. In our programming, this is represented by 1*1, which means 1 for my account and 1 for account number, which means that we need to give the user the account number back. So this is a second level business logic or a response where the user is requesting for the bank account details. Let's create a variable called account number and give an account number of ACC 1001. This is hard-coded response, but what would have happened is the application would have gone to the database, looked for the customer whose phone number is indicated, and put that data in the variable account number to send it back to the API, then the telecom, then to the customer's mobile phone. And since this is a terminal request, so we have to start the response with END. So we need to declare the variable response equals end to show that this is the end of this request. Then your account number is, then we send to the user the account number that was obtained from the database, assuming that the project is complete and it's getting the details from the database. If this is not the case, the variable that we have already declared up there as account number. Let's now assume the user selected option 1, which is account number, then 2, which is the bank balance. So this is a second level response where the user selected 1 in the first instance and 2 in the second instance. So which means we need to give a feedback of 1*2. We need to create a variable and we are going to name it balance, and we are going to say this equals Kenya shillings 10,000. This is for just demonstration purposes. The balance should have been obtained from the database, but we are going to use 10,000 for demonstration purposes. Then we need to create a variable called response equals, we need to put this in double quotes and start with the word end, because this is the end of this particular request, and then your balance is, then we can give the user the balance that we have put up there as a variable or the balance that the application got from the database, in case it is complete and it is getting data from the database. The last section of the code, I should have done it when I was doing this so that it's easier for everyone to follow, so that you are not lost on what is happening. Let's type it first, then I'm going to explain why we are putting it there. We need to declare the type of data, which is plain text, and we declare this using the header type, and we call this text plain, which means this is plain text. This is the data that we are going to return to the API, and it will be in form of plain text. Then we need to echo this data so that our API can read it from our browser, and we need to say what we are returning to the API, which is response. And this is where you need to understand that this response depends on which if statement our application went through. If, for instance, it went through the last statement, it will have response as and your balance is, then the amount of the balance, which in this case is Kenya shillings 10,000. Same case with here, and same case with any other if statement. So it's not going to have all this, it's going to have the data that belongs to the if statement where our project went through. That is what I wanted to make clear, because it can be confusing because we have a lot of variables called response, and I've noted an error here. This is not response, this should be response. I could find any other error when I try to run the project, so I'm going to check if there are any errors, and in case there are any errors, I'm going to correct them before we host this PHP file on the server. Now that we have developed our application, we are going to host it in Heroku, so we need to open a new terminal. The first thing you need to do is log in to Heroku. Log into Heroku. We have logged on to Heroku. After logging in, we need to go to the app that you want to work with. I want to use this app because we are allowed to create 5 apps in Heroku, so I'm going to use this app. But for you, you need to come here, new, create new app, and give it a name. For me, I'm just going to use an existing app, which is this one. Then I'm going to come down here and select deploy to get the instructions. So I'm supposed to, the first thing you need to do is you clone it to your desktop. So Heroku clone call strip, it has done that. So after that, we cd to the call script, which is that. So I'm inside there. Then after that, we add the project. Let's open it and see what is there. My call script has index.php and USSD.php, and this USSD, if you can check here, is this file that we have been creating in the past sessions. It's only that I used a different folder so that I am able to host my project online. So after that, we need to add our files to this particular directory. So add, then after add, we need to commit. To commit, you use this instruction, which is git commit -am, then in quotes, make it better. So that is okay, nothing to commit, it's clean because we had already done that. Then from there we can do Then last command, which now we push our files to Heroku, which is the repository for Heroku. Everything is up to date, so we are good to go. So you can see the project that you are working on is called call script. So if you are to open this up here, use USSD.php, it has the first response, which is 1, my account, 2, my number. This means that this URL is working. So we need to copy this URL, copy, then go to AfricasTalking. We create channel, we create a channel, we give it a number, let's say like 8,000. Is it available? It's available. Then we paste this URL and then we create the channel. The number 8,000 is not available. Let's use the one they are giving us, like 89,077. Create a channel. The channel has been created. So this is the URL, callback URL, and this is the number. So we are going to copy this, then go to simulator, launch it, should appear here. So if you paste this code that we have created now, it should be able to, you see, it can access our backend. This is what we developed. If you remember, what do you want to check? So if you put 1, it gives account number. That's 1. Put a 1 again, it gives you ACC 1001. Let's try with still 1, my account. Then we put 2 instead of 1, so it gives us a balance of 10,000. Let's still try with option 2, my phone number. It gives us your phone number is, and that's how we create a simple USSD application. So what is remaining is for you to finish the sections where you are supposed to get the data from the database, as opposed to hard coding it, and you will be good to go. Then after you are done with this, you have an application that is running. You can go to AfricasTalking so that you can get the codes that you can use in the production environment. Thank you for watching the video. Feel free to subscribe, and in case you have any questions about this particular video or any other kind of questions, please post them in the comment section. I will always reply. As you know, it's a lot of work to make nice videos, and if there's no one who is watching them, I would prefer to just do the programming in the background as opposed to wasting a lot of time doing videos and no one is interested in them. So like, comment. I would also expect you to turn on the notification bell on the top right side. Also subscribe so that in case you forget the name of the channel, at least you'll go to the channels that you have subscribed to and you will be able to find my channel. The name of the channel is Better Media, youtube.com/Better Media. I'm looking forward to the next presentation.